8 minutes. Usim is our main host for tonight. Today we'll talk about the Crimean Bridge. There's a lot of interesting information about it right now. Not in terms of technical specifications, but in terms of the possibility of Ukraine attacking this piece of infrastructure, which is, as you can guess, extremely important. And then we'll also take a look at what's going on with the negotiations. Spoiler: things are very bad. Plus, oil prices keep rising, and the general global crisis is also basically approaching, because Iran has once again blocked the Strait of Hormuz. That's how it happened, as expected, but what do you say, Ukrainians? Well, let's get started, but before we begin, I came across some very interesting information on my Telegram channel. It turns out that some draft office guys like this person here also work for girls. They do their eyelashes. So just imagine, during the day you're a recruiter, shoving people into a van for money, restricting their rights and duties, sending them to die at the front, and in the evening you're doing girls' eyelashes. And apparently you tell them interesting stories from your military life. Maybe that's a way to find yourself a life partner? Honestly, I can't imagine what's going on in this person's head. Well, they've already found his Instagram, so everything will be just fine. In Kryvyi, the hometown of Volodymyr Zelensky, these so-called death vans have appeared. I don't even know what to compare this to anymore. During the Great Patriotic War, portable crematoriums used to drive down some streets, but these aren't crematoriums, it's more like a safe just on the inside. Instead of money, there's money in there for the TCC guys. As you know, they get quite a hefty bribe for rounding citizens up into vans. But from the outside, of course, it doesn't look like much at all. And this is called digital democracy, a country in a smartphone. People also came from the IMF, from the European Union. They came to evaluate those backpacks and uniforms, and it turned out that almost everything was fine. Therefore, they should deliver the initial 90 billion tranche by late June. Obviously, simply because, well, these mobilization vans are wonderful. This is the center of democracy. On top of that, such appeals have also appeared in Ukraine. So, if you know who attacked the mobilization officer, that means you're a traitor, that means you're a betrayer. And don't let the enemy breathe in your place, protect those who protect you. Obviously, the authors of this leaflet believe that the mobilization officers are protecting people. This is just another manifestation of the amazing democracy in Ukraine, which probably needs to be scaled up to other countries as well. Because, well, such powerful mechanisms for implementing this very democracy, freedom of speech, individual rights, freedom of religion, language rights, and everything else, should be shared, I think, with others. Here's probably the last thing I'll show from the Telegram channel so I don't overwhelm you. This is what our mobilization guys look like now, and here's a female fighter. Either she's fighting with drones, or she's fighting against drones, or maybe she's a mobilization officer. But she said she wanted to be among real men, and now apparently she is among real men with a bull's dream. In Ukraine, it's digital, yes. Now let's not postpone the issue with the Crimean Bridge. Look, yes, about the Telegram channel, sorry, you need to subscribe to it, or rather you can, right here, there's a QR code for it. Point your smartphone or tablet camera and it'll take you straight where you need to go, or right here too. There's also a link to my Telegram channel in the video description, where all this information appears from time to time. Now the Crimean Bridge, look, there's a Ukrainian analyst here. And basically I read the article, even though of course it's written by a very patriotic person, there is logic in his words. What is he saying in short? First, it's that right now the so-called land bridge to Crimea is being destroyed by the Ukrainian armed forces. A huge number of vehicles have been destroyed there, those that transport fuel, military trucks, tanker trucks, and gas stations along the road. And he says that the Ukrainian armed forces have an order to restrict movement on this route, not to stop it completely, but specifically to limit it. Later, Ukrainian forces quietly destroyed the railway ferries in the Kerch Strait in April and May. And he says there isn't a single railway ferry right now. By the way, for those from Russia, please tell me, those who regularly travel to Crimea, are there any ferries there? Is it true or not? Right now, it's extremely difficult to find anything about this in the media. Some say yes, others say no. Accordingly, we need information from the scene. Please write either in the comments on YouTube or in this same Telegram channel under one of the posts. Leave a comment, I'll see it and definitely mention it in one of the videos. Now, as for now, cargo that can't go through these platforms, ferries, and other logistics options can either be transported by road, which adds extra load to the highway. We remember that the capacity there is limited, or it can go through the Crimean bridge, but traffic on it has already been restricted after previous strikes. There's a separate strike here on fuel. The thing is, the oil depots there have suffered huge damage. Now, and I think no one will say anymore that it's just like a mosquito bite, like someone wrote in the comments, yeah, they destroyed one storage facility, that's it. The directors of oil depots, the directors of the oil and gas industry and related enterprises in Russia earn more than the cost of a tank like this, a reservoir like this. But maybe all they get is just the tank. It won't be possible to rebuild quickly, and accordingly, aviation exports have already decreased significantly now. I think kerosene has even been completely banned. Just this morning I saw news on a Russian site that they have completely banned its export. Of course, further confirmation is needed, but for now, that's how things stand. Then also about the Crimean bridge. Here they're saying that the main flow, when they transfer this fuel, these military trucks, will go over the Crimean bridge. In about a month or a month and a half, the Ukrainian armed forces will start attacking this bridge. Despite the large number of air defenses on it, they're breaking through now with drones because both sides have made a huge number of them, and air defense isn't all powerful. It's not a panacea. If you send, roughly speaking, 500 small flying devices, you can't shoot them all down with Patriots or ballistic missiles. Plus, you have to think about how much it costs to shoot down a single drone. If it costs almost $100 million, then the math gets interesting when you think about the economies of different countries in Crimea and elsewhere. Now, about the oil and gas industry in Russia. Bloomberg published an article saying that oil refining in Russia has dropped to its lowest level in 16 years after the Ukrainian armed forces strike. It is said that in May, Ukraine set a record for the number of attacks on Russian oil refining. Drones struck fuel-producing facilities about 16 times and hit 8 out of the 10 largest oil refineries in Russia. Accordingly, oil refining has dropped to its lowest level since October 2009. Honestly, I only use open sources, not closed ones, because logically they are closed. If you have other information, please make sure it's confirmed. I think you're wrong just because you're wrong. That's not an argument. If you have any information, please share it in the comments. I'd be interested to see it all. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This is extremely important for everyone. Important and relevant information from this channel will be able to spread much more easily everywhere than via all those routes, the Strait of Hormuz and the rest. There should be no barriers to information. Next, they tell us that Kyiv has intensified strikes on Russian energy infrastructure to limit Moscow's ability to profit from high oil prices during the war in the Middle East. And Ukraine is also attacking repeatedly. They hit, pulled back, hit again, didn't pull back, but waited until repairs were made and hit again. And accordingly, it becomes harder and harder to restore what can no longer be repaired. Roughly the same tactic, the same one was used during the bombings of Ukraine's energy infrastructure. They hit it too. Repair crews bring in new units, install modules, fix everything. Then it happens again and so on, until all these modules run out. In my opinion, Ukraine is doing about the same thing to Russia's oil refineries. And they're also telling us that Ukraine has changed its tactics. And they're hitting not only the primary units, which are easy and quick to repair, but also the secondary ones, including those that are technologically complex and expensive. Specifically, they allow for the production of more gasoline and diesel, but repairing them is much more difficult because of Western sanctions. Now, Ukrainian drones are attacking not only factories, but also export terminals, oil pipelines, and pumping stations. Storage facilities have also come under attack. Now it's harder to stockpile and produce extra fuel, so to speak, because there are fewer storage tanks and less capacity, which creates difficulties. And also to protect the domestic market. Yes, I read it correctly, that's really true. The authorities have banned the export of jet fuel until the end of November, in addition to the existing ban on selling most gasoline abroad. Right now, everything is fine at gas stations, except in Crimea, and there are no problems. The issue probably isn't about that. It's not about private ownership, but rather about the overall decline in exports, which prevents the economy from receiving income that is already not at a very high level. Then Zelensky surprises here because he is demanding Patriot systems from the US, just like he demanded installations from Germany, then he demanded missiles, and now he's demanding something else again, always asking for more. So now Zelensky is demanding missiles from the US. Because the only hope in this difficult issue of protecting airspace and various infrastructure facilities, probably like these from Russian missiles, is the US. And he says, either give us missiles or give us a license. This raises the question, why aren't the flamingos flying, and what happened to their licenses? You don't need to get any special permits for them. You can produce them by the hundreds of thousands and launch them in all directions. So why aren't they flying now? It's absolutely impossible to understand, but Zelensky, without any hesitation, appealed to the US with a request to provide Ukraine with a license. According to him, the current production volumes of US anti-ballistic missiles are not enough to respond to existing threats. But the threats are not to the US. Or Israel, with which the US has an agreement, but Ukraine, with which the US only has an agreement to export rare earth and other resources from Ukraine to the US. In general, as far as we can tell, this contract doesn't provide for anything else, says Zelensky. That we can increase the production of Patriot missiles, this will help us, it will help the Middle East and any other country that the United States decides to help. Until we start producing a European anti-ballistic system, we will need the support of the United States. And also he says this, Zelensky, again I remind you, believes that it is necessary to find a diplomatic way, to sit down and talk before the start of the next winter. But this depends on internal pressure on Putin and so on. In general, they talk and talk, but nothing good comes out of it. And in my opinion, well, they will meet. I don't know if they will argue at that meeting or not, but clearly there will be no mutual satisfaction from it. And they will start with some conditions, one side with one set of conditions, the other with another set, and both of these lists of conditions contradict each other. The question is, why meet at all? What can two people agree on? Who are at the top of management and administrative control in their respective countries, so to speak? And who should be preparing for all this with the help of their teams? The teams should initially negotiate and discuss all of this, and only then should the presidents meet. But for Zelensky, everything seems very simple. They just sat down and talked. Apparently, either he scared Putin or Putin scared him, but then they parted ways, very pleased with each other. With a signed peace agreement, in my opinion, if they don't meet, these conversations will continue. Not until this winter, which is already coming, and as always, it comes unexpectedly for the utility workers who will say, oh my god, snow again. Can you imagine it snowed in winter and there's still ice and the temperature is below zero? Well, how about that? Then the temperature rises, the snow melts. Can you imagine water forms when it melts? This strange white cold substance. What are you going to do about it? But of course, this cold white substance will naturally affect the heating system and the heating infrastructure. It's currently unclear what's happening with city heating. Again, if anyone from Ukraine knows, please share if you have any information. Because in the winter, it was everywhere that the heating system was in terrible condition. Pipes were burst, some were completely destroyed by bombs and missiles. So now it's not clear whether everything is fine and already fixed, or on the contrary, things are so bad that it's all being covered up. Well, in short, Zelensky does these kinds of contradictory things and it's all give us patriots, give us peace, give us everything. But that's how it is. And the worst part is that there are practically no opposition parties left in Ukraine. If before there was at least something with, Poroshenko, who's basically just Zelensky right now, that's how it is now. They came together in a unified impulse to turn the digital concentration camp, or rather the digital state, into a state behind barbed wire. And now, Poroshenko also states the following. In conditions where Ukraine is fighting for survival, dialogue with the parliament and restoring its agency are important. Too many challenges can only be overcome together. It was agreed that such meetings will be held regularly and the dialogue will become ongoing. But once again, let me remind you that it was Poroshenko who started all this mess. Because he amended the constitution to enshrine Ukraine's aspiration to join NATO, he brought in the army, the language, weapons, and everything else. Zelensky intensified this and took it even further. Now we have Poroshenko on steroids. But, as we can see, these are two absolutely identical people, just with different scales of thinking. Regarding the transformation of Ukraine into this kind of militarized corporation, so to speak, which earns money for the owners of this corporation, but they are gradually grinding down those small cogs that were at its foundation and still are, and that allow this mechanism to function properly. In short, everyone came together in one common push. And this whole situation again, which is just military madness, so now what? And now let's see what other experts think about peace, about all of this. These are our powerful leaders, and now we'll take a look at them. Let's see who comes first. Let's first see what they've achieved. Their work.
We are completely satisfied with our work, but unfortunately, our work did not yield any results.
Yes, the work did not yield any results, and now what? Now we have to be upset because what else can you do? Next, we have something besides, of course, the work that did not yield any results. Here is such a deputy, a female deputy, who is unhappy that Ukrainians are protesting in the streets against migrants, Indians, Pakistanis, and representatives of other nationalities. No one wants to be replaced by someone else because that's not it. It's not like an empty country is suddenly being filled. No, they're pushing out one group, specifically Ukrainians, to the front and replacing them with representatives of other nationalities. And naturally, most of those who are being replaced, along with their relatives, friends, acquaintances, and just people who have a negative attitude toward all of this, are dissatisfied.
You know how it is? I think you don't really have to worry too much about immigrants coming here. But that's exactly what the Russian intelligence services are playing on, organizing these rallies and promoting these narratives. The idea that Ukrainians will lose jobs and become like Europe with millions of immigrants. If we can't find enough Ukrainians for a job, if people aren't interested, conditions aren't right, or the profession doesn't fit, we look for foreigners. There was a time when Ukrainians worked in Poland.
Well, yes, now it seems the Poles will come to Ukraine. The woman, of course, about Tatkini too is also very strong. About 2 years ago, I often heard her share interesting and reasonable arguments against the government's proposals. Now, as I said, and I'm saying it for the third time, everyone has merged together in a single impulse of this utterly miserable patriotism. Here we have this guy and this lady, well, it's an aunt for now, but soon she'll show us Uncle Berezovnoy. Shrek, a recruiter for the Special Operations Forces. The uncle just has an awesome nickname.
And Dima Torzok, this was Shrek, recruiter for the Special Operations Forces.
A personality kind of like Anfisa Chekova. Leave a like if you want subtitles for Anfisa Chekova. If you already did, remember to leave a like too. Well, now we have Shrek. Basically, whatever you call it, that's how it will go, just like whatever you call a man. So, he lives in the swamps, right? His little house is there, kind of like a WC, and hello, I exist. Let's do it this way, like Mossad. We'll always know about the Russians.
Subtitles made by Dima Torzok.
Well, yeah, much better than Israeli intelligence, counterintelligence, and all that.
They are all over the world. They are geographically close to us, and the war won't end on the day, let's say, some document is signed.
I absolutely agree. Unfortunately, in my opinion, this will last for a long time. We also need to prepare for it to be long. And also look into military specialties. Choose one for yourself.
Again, you pick assault infantryman, you always end up as assault infantryman. Who should I be? Probably an assault infantryman. These talking heads who have never served and are nothing special, really, yes, they don't even surprise me anymore. And honestly, yes, they don't even annoy me, they just make me wonder. Come on, how many times can you repeat the same thing? It's clear that the concept of 1,000 heads more or less justifies itself. But not that much, but they won't believe it. Some person who doesn't want to go to the front lines and who is hiding in his apartment or somewhere in a private house or maybe even at a dacha, he won't listen to those stories 1,000 times about where it's better to serve and then just go straight to the front lines. Yeah, that won't happen because there are also other videos that show the other side of all this, the real side. How are people being beaten in the van, treated during training, and what's actually happening at the front? And these people keep talking about how you can self-actualize and thus reach the top level of Maslow's pyramid. Well, there's just no limit. It gets absurd. There are already some cases, like there's a Brit in the ranks of the AFU or maybe the draft office. This guy claims Ukraine will be thriving in 5 years. Yeah, looking at him, I don't know, well, it's his, as I understand, girlfriend from Ukraine. For some reason, there's an interesting Ukrainian word, vystidayetsia. She's ashamed. Why she's ashamed, what happened, it's unclear.
After the war, I think in just 2 to 5 years, more likely in 5, you won't even recognize that this country was at war. I think everything will be thriving and businesses will reopen. Business will be booming and the construction industry will grow.
And how is everything going to develop and grow if there are no people in the country, man? How? Tell me, please. I understand that you wouldn't go to serve in the army of another country where they pay less than at home if life was good. But, well, at least to have some idea, at least some basic understanding of what the economy is, what war is, how all of this works. I understand if you've only read an English primer, just the alphabet in English, and that's it, that's one thing. But if you claim to be some kind of opinion leader, and he definitely does, because they showed him, then all of this looks pretty strange. Well, that's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe to the Telegram channel, this wonderful one, to the YouTube channel you're watching, and have a good time. Bye, everyone.
About 5,000 warheads. What of them actually flies, we don't really know. They've launched quite a lot of them this year, and far from every launch was successful. We don't know how it will reach the target or work. They might use threats or psychological pressure, but I don't think they can mass produce many of them.